everyone.
Good morning.
So fun to see a crowd. Awesome.
Welcome, everyone. I would just like to say it is not nighttime where I am. I don't know why my room is so dark. I just thought I'd talk about the elephant in the room right away. Yes, I have the window open. Yes, I have the lights on. I don't know. It's just gloomy at my house, I guess. Like Eeyore, we're just under a cloud. So. All right, I think everyone's rolling in.
And, while we're kind of letting everyone get started, you can see that there is a poll that you can take. And there's also a question. There's a space to ask questions, and you can ask us questions that hopefully we will have time to get to either during the event or inside Sistership. I think a few of the basic ones are, yes, it's going to be recorded and the replay will be here at the same link, and we'll put it into Sistership. And let's see some of the history. Let's see. Am I supposed to hear something?
Yes.
Now
yes, you are.
But she was asking before it was live.
Okay.
But there's also a question there for you to answer, and that was, what was the favorite book that you read in 2020? Ooh. And so we can get some good book recommendations there. 13 people have already answered that. And let me click, not that link, the poll. And there should be, I think, is there still a Facebook to share? Actually, I don't see one. Maybe now that it started, there isn't. But you can invite people in. It's not too late, so that we can have some really good reading this year. It looks like we have more people who did not do the 2020 5x5 challenge than who have.
Oh, good. Oh, wow.
So,
well, yay. Welcome. Did you talk about the button right here?
So this button, the green button down below, you can click that and it will open up a new window. So you'll keep hearing us. And the sign up to get your 5x5 pages, downloadable, printable, beautiful reading charts.
Yeah.
Are, look at the right angle.
There, it's better.
Click the green button there and you can download your pages.
Excellent.
And I think it's 3 pages. It's a 3-page planning form. So it'll also have, what's the third one? Is that the bookshelf?
The book stack.
The book stack. My favorite, because then we can color.
Well, and if you don't have a color printer, because I don't have a color printer, I have a black and white printer. I just sent mine to Office Depot and I made myself some copies and then I went and picked them up. It was super easy. And it's worth the money, however much the little.
It is. I have a black and white printer. And so when it's just usually a few things a year, I can just send it online to Office Depot and run and pick them up.
What I do.
That's what I do too.
I'm going to do my kids in color as well. So.
Okay, I just like to say, I have a color printer. Neener. And later, I'll tell you guys what I have because it's the cheapest way to have a color printer. So I will tell you.
It's a hot tip from Brandy.
Yeah. And Sistership later, because that's not what we're supposed to be talking about right now.
So that's another reason to join Sistership.
Yeah, there you go. So you can find out my color printer. I just can't remember the name right this second, or I would tell you right now.
So one of the questions there is, when did the 5x5 challenge start? And so I think that's a good start off question. Last year was our first year doing the 5x5 challenge. And it started as an idea in my own head at the end of 2019 when I was musing on making goals, and not only a new year, but a new decade and all those hopes and dreams before, when we all thought everything was going to be amazing and wonderful. And
we're under no illusions this year.
And I was just looking. I had an abysmal reading year in 2019. I don't even know how many books I read, but it was definitely less than 20. I'd be lucky if it was 10. And so I was like, okay, I really need to kick it up a notch in 2020, or they're not going to let me be a scholacister anymore. And looking at, I purchased probably 3 or 4 times as many books as I read. So my husband's going to cancel my Amazon account if I don't. So I was looking, I was like, you know what? I buy books in certain genres or categories all the time, and yet I almost never read them. And so I was musing about that and wanting to read these books that I had actually purchased, and also remembering, I grew up homeschooled from kindergarten, preschool on. And one of the most formative parts of my experience of being homeschooled was not in the curriculum or what we did during school hours, but the fact that we went to the library all the time, and my parents purchased books all the time. Like they decorated in books. It was books all the time. And if you wanted to know something, this was also pre-internet. If you wanted to know something, what you did was you went to the library and got 5 books. And so my dad would have big book stacks next to the place he sat, and my mom would have books. And we were encouraged to also just, are you interested in that? Check out 5 books. And so this idea of expanding your knowledge, not by just reading one good book, but getting that perspective of multiple good books, like you don't really know something until you've read a few different books on the topic, was kind of rattling around in my mind. And so that 5, check out 5 books was big in my mind. I thought, you know what, I need to be reading not just these 3 topics that I'm always buying books on, but I need to apply that get 5 books to what the kind of book that I'm reading too, because I tend to get stuck in a rut and only reading the same kind of thing, the thing that is always interesting to me and I'll probably always be reading about. I need to also expand what I'm thinking and reading about in order to have some of those connections and be well-rounded and interesting and all those kind of things. So 5 by 5. That's where it came from. 5 books in 5 categories.
I love it. I'm so glad that you didn't just do your own little plan by yourself, but that you actually told the rest of us.
And so we did it with Scholasisters as a challenge in 2020, and it has been so much fun to do it in a group.
Because friends don't let friends read alone.
That's right.
Yes.
We need to do this together.
It's better together.
That's right.
Oh gosh, where's Pam?
It's Pam.
When you said you had an abysmal reading year last year, I immediately thought of Pam, because I told Pam that I had an abysmal reading. I think it was when we were getting ready for 5 by 5 last year. And she was like, no, you didn't. And I said, yes, I did. I only read 19 books. And that's the first time in my life that I felt like Pam was disappointed in me. She's always so encouraging. Like, it's not that bad. You'll be fine. She's like, really? I'm like, aw. I thought at least you would still be proud of me. So it was a big disappointment, apparently.
So this year, I think I read 30 books. So I read a few, not on the 5 by. I finished my 5 by 5 with some adjustments along the way and a couple others. And so that feels really good.
Yeah, for sure. I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, me too.
Somewhere. Not sure what to do about that.
Is anyone else? I'm not. It sounds fine to me.
Oh, well, if it's just me then. Actually, it stopped. Okay, we're good. We'll just go with it. I don't really want to put on earphones because, like I said, anytime I plug something into this computer, it goes, bye. So.
Okay. So other people don't hear an echo either. We're good.
There is an echo. So since it's not bad.
Okay.
That's interesting. I'm going to think it's either... So you guys double check you don't have another window open. I think it would be worse if you had a window open. But
okay.
Probably it's going to be fine on the recording since I don't have an echo. It's
right,
going to
Okay.
be mine. It's
Just when I talk.
Abby talks.
So maybe I can I'm going to unplug my microphone and see if that's better. If I can.
Oh.
Because I plugged it in late. So we'll see.
Yeah.
It wasn't giving me an option. Okay.
Well, if more than one person has it, it's not just Rachel's.
How about now? Is that better?
Your volume's actually better.
Oh, well then we'll just stick with this.
Weird.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay.
Okay.
Solved that. Awesome. So, Brandy, you want to tell us how the 5x5 challenge works then?
Yes. Okay. I brought my color printout that I printed at home. Not to brag, but I printed this in my office. Okay, so here we have the form. New form this year. Brooke made us a new form. I like it even better than what we did last year. Though last year was fine. I like this better. Okay, so mine I already have filled out here. Let's see how far. There, that works. Okay, so we choose, as Misty said, I'm trying to work on the lighting here. Sorry, guys. Better, worse. Better, worse. Okay. Well, you guys can use the button and download your own forms, and then you'll be able to see it. Okay, so we're going to choose 5 categories. Okay, so here's the deal, guys. There you go. I did this backwards this year. So last year, I chose 5 categories. Like, my challenge to myself was to read in 5 categories. And so then I wandered around my house, and I put up 5 books for each category that I had already chosen. And I mean, I left a couple places blank where I didn't have books, or I made an excuse to buy books or whatever. This year, I felt very lost. So what I did was I wandered around my house, and I gathered a huge stack of books. And then I was like, maybe some categories will just come to me. Like, surely we could make sense out of this disconnected pile of books. And it worked. So, okay.
That is very much the P personality way of coming up with a 5x5 challenge.
Well, okay, so Haley's here this morning. Haley was like, can my category really be anything? And I was like, yes. Literally, it could be books that have blue covers. And she was all, I'm doing it.
I do not approve.
Well, yeah.
I know that's not completely fitting the goal. Now, I will say I don't actually have any books with blue covers. I was thinking, I almost had a section that was called obligatory books because it was like things I have to read for a podcast episode, or because I'm doing a review for somebody, or because I have to read it for the school board, or whatever, like book club, whatever. But I ended up being able to fit those. And I think that's why I was struggling, because I have these books that don't really, like, I didn't choose them. They chose me. But I was able to, like, fit them in elsewhere. And so it didn't end up mattering. But I think that's why I was having a hard time. Okay, so I don't know if you want me to talk about this, but I'm going to because I have the mic. So one of the things I was going to say, though, because I was reading through feedback and this kind of thing, is people were saying, like, I didn't realize how stretching it would be in a good way. Stretching it would be in a good way to have categories that were kind of outside my comfort zone. So last year I had a fiction category, and I actually thought that was stretching me. And then I looked at my list, and I was like, yeah, I read I way overread in that category. I did not need it as a category. I was going to read it anyway. Yeah. So this year, my challenge part of this, because, I mean, think of it this way. Like, if you don't have a habit of reading, then the challenge part is filling out the form at all and trying to do it. If you have a habit of reading, then the challenge part can be your categories. And then after you've done it a year or two, then, like, you kind of figure out where you're really not stretching yourself. And it's okay, I think. You know, it's kind of like, I don't know. Abby has wet hair because she exercised before she got here. I'm not sure why she does things like this, but she did it. So
gymnastic education.
But I'm just thinking, so there's you can take a walk and you can actually work out, and both of those things are good for you. So it's not like I think everything has to be stretching. But if you want to stretch yourself, I actually think a year or two of doing something like a challenge and then looking back helps you identify where to stretch yourself. Because for me, I actually thought fiction was stretching, and then after a year, I was like, it's really not a challenge, because even if it wasn't written down, I would have read it. So versus some of these other ones. So this year I have 5 categories, and they're all nonfiction, but that's just because of what I learned about myself, not because of that's how you have to do it. Other people said they wanted to do more fiction, and I had a child last year it was all fiction. It was detective novels, science fiction novels, fantasy novel. So I'm not going to complain. She was 12 when she started it. So
I had a fiction category on my list last year because I tend to read only nonfiction.
Right. Yeah. My fiction category gets completed for. Yep. I'm with you, Jennifer. That's
what I did. And then I didn't read much fiction the rest of the year. So
that's interesting.
Yeah. Which was not good. It was not a great reading year for me last year, though, either. So I'm readjusting some things this year.
Is it because you read the news all the time?
No, because I have a friend who tells me about the news all the time.
What's that YouTube channel, the Some Good News channel? I was like, I should do one. And it's here's the bad news.
Yeah, I would not choose a health category, because I read enough on health on my own, and I don't usually, and I don't necessarily read those cover to cover anyway. And I like to finish books. Some of them are really good in excerpts, but a lot of them have things that I'm okay, I got all the information I needed, and so there. So those don't go on my 5x5 challenge, because those are just pet interests and things like that. Yeah. And this year I am putting. Are we finished, Brandy? Because I just totally took over.
I was going to say one little organization thing really quick. And that was just that so this year, the reading tracker, the habit tracker, which that doesn't come with that worksheet, but they can still get it. I don't remember how they get it though. Misty, maybe you can tell me. I actually have it. It's right here. If you can see it. It's not very well, but it's little bubbles for every day in the month. And that's 12 months. You can just barely see it. So here's what I did. I got this idea from somebody in there she goes. So I got this idea from somebody in Sistership who was color coding everything. And it's to solve that exact problem. That's what made me think of it. So where you said you finished all your fiction in the first month and then.
Yeah.
Okay. So here I actually color coded my categories this year. And I used a highlight. Where are my highlighter? A low lighter. I have these, right? Can you see them? They're low lighters or midliners. Something. My lighting is terrible. There you go. All right. So here's what I did. Now when I track whether I read, I'm using the color for the category so I can see if I'm only reading in one category. Just visually. So if there's not enough colors on my little tracker, I'm probably in a rut. So Brandy sounds loud. That's because Brandy has an exceptionally loud voice. I'm sorry. I spent my whole childhood with my parents being shh. So it's probably not a volume problem. It's a me problem. I'll try to control myself. Friction highlighters, so you can actually erase them if you.
Yeah, and I just like how I like that they are see-through. They're not too bright.
That's what my midliners are like also. That's why I chose them, because the highlighter is blinding when you walk into the room. Yay for loud talkers.
I've never been accused of support. So that's no, stop talking. That's not real. I'm really loud. So.
That's true. You can be.
Okay.
I am double checking. I know that the tracker is a part of the reading journal, so it's a part of the sisters.
I just feel like you said that it was free somewhere too, and I can't remember where that was.
I don't think it's the reading tracker. we have a Scholé monthly
Every day,
tracker.
yeah.
This one's for the whole
Okay,
year.
that's probably what I'm thinking. So it's a different tracker.
It's a different tracker. So this one is a part of the reading journal that the Sophies get for their Christmas present, and that's in the bonus area. And then we are going to have a reading journal, a printed reading journal. It's just behind schedule.
Yeah, which, by the way, the Sophie Journal, I think you can only finish downloading it in January. Like, it's only available through the rest of this month. So if you're Sophie and you haven't downloaded it, go save it, because it disappears until next Christmas. So, okay, what else? That was you can go on with your thing now, Abby, that I'm done talking about highlighters and other minutia.
Yes. No, that's good. That's really good. I wanted to color code mine. I haven't done it yet, though, but I want to make sure that I have kind of some lighter reads, some moderately easy, and at least one stiff book in each of my categories.
Ooh.
So that, because I found that some of my choices were all like really big and heavy, and so I had to change them, and it just wasn't feasible. I got really ambitious, and last year was not an ambitious year. So I am going to make sure that I have just one stiff book in each of those. And I'm going to try and get, like, I like audiobooks, and I like to walk and listen to audiobooks. And so I'm going to try to at least have one audiobook or maybe two in each category. So that way I have no excuses for not sticking with my plan. I'm going to try to adhere to my plan. Last year, I put everything on sticky notes and would not peg myself in because I hate having to decide. I needed a lot more flexibility. This year, I think I learned a lot last year. And so I've learned and I've made some better choices. Okay, so I do have a sticky note, and I want to talk about that. So this is my ancients category, which is mostly Greece and Rome. One thing I want to finish is Paideia by Werner Jaeger this year. I tried to finish it last year, and I'm pretty close, but it just takes a lot of brain space, and I really need to pace it better. So that is one of my...
That's why we recorded 0 episodes on Paideia
I've
this
been
year.
reading, they have not, just so you know. I am further along in the book than they are. I'm going to totally throw you under the bus, both of you, because you're slacking.
We deserve it. It's fine.
So the reason I have extras is because there are 3 that I really do want to read this year, for sure. Paideia is one of them. And then I have a mythology book, Heroes, by Stephen Fry. And then I have the Odyssey, and I'm using the Emily Wilson translation, which is on audio. So those are my 3 that I am going to do. But the reason I have all of these is because these are some of the books that I bought this year or for this challenge I bought this year. And so I have some selections, and I'm calling these my pinch hitters. So I have some alternates. I like sports analogies, and I'm sorry for all of you who hate sports. But in baseball or softball, there are designated hitters and there are designated fielders, and sometimes you just have to bring in a pinch hitter when you need to knock it out of the park. So I have some shorter, easier reads on this list and in most of my categories. So that way, if I am getting too bogged down, I know I can pick up this alternative and I still have a plan for it. Or if the category went really well, I can always read a bonus book, right? So I have a lot more flexibility, but it's within pretty strict parameters. So I'm choosing all my books beforehand, but I do have some alternates in case somebody gets injured along the way and can no longer play.
That's a good point. You know, I will say this. This is a mistake I made last year. I did not actually look at page length.
Yes.
And a couple of the books I had put on the list so that I could purchase them later or ask for them for my birthday or whatever. And so then I got to the end of the year, and really my 3 substitutes that I did, well, I think one was because I misplaced a book, so I couldn't find it. But the other 2 were because I started them too late. Like, I would have had time to read them, but I didn't have time to read a whole huge book in December. And I made the mistake of waiting until after Thanksgiving to start a couple of my final books. So I can't remember exactly, but I know one of them I took out was God in the Dock. and it's great. But I got halfway through and I thought, I'm not going to make it to the end. So I just moved that to this year because I still want to finish it. But I do think I learned my lesson that I need to be tracking. I don't want to choose 600-page books in one category. And that was the kind of thing that I did. Not that I literally did that, but I just wasn't taking into consideration the size, the length of the book in any category. So where I went wrong was just with page length, really, for me. So
yeah. And so I'll just go through my other categories that I have. I have a local book club because my group is still meeting together once a month for about 10 months out of the year because we take off some time for holidays. And I felt like that was really important. And last year I missed quite a few books because they weren't on my 5x5 challenge. And our group plans them out a year in advance. We're getting the list this week at church. So my church lady book club is what I call it, but other people come too. So it is something that I want to make time for. So that is blank right now, but those are already prescribed. And so I'm going to commit to doing those, even if I don't particularly like the book, because sometimes, book clubs can be a little bit, it's wild, wild west out there. And then I have British literature by women authors.
Wow.
I was just going to do Jane Austen, but I really didn't want to read Mansfield Park, Emma, or Northanger Abbey again. So I'm just reading my favorite. Sorry, Dawn, Garrett. Mansfield Park is still not my favorite. I have Pride and Prejudice, Sense and Sensibility. I have Persuasion because I really like those three, and it's been a while since I've read them. And I was going to do Middlemarch, but it's huge, and I'm just not sure I want to do it. So I'm doing another George Eliot, which is Silas Marner, or however you say that.
Oh, that's good. I like that one.
And it's a lot shorter. But Sense and Sensibility and Pride and Prejudice are not short. So,
no.
So I need to pace myself. And then I am choosing I got a couple books from the library, a couple Agatha Christie's or a Barbara Pym, and I've never read her. And so I am deciding, but so I have one blank space. And so I feel like I have a good specific category that I like, and I've got most of them, but I can have a little flexibility there too. And then Lady Dusk or Dawn Garrett and I are doing a home and hospitality or home and food.
Fun.
Yes. And so anyone can join us on those. And we might even try to do like a Zoom meetup to do that. But these are more, we're going to do Supper of the Lamb, Keeping House, Hallowed Be This House, I think, or Hallowed Be This Home. I can't remember which one it is. And then Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. And then we have one that's coming out by Nigella Lawson. And I think it's Cook, Eat, Repeat. I can't remember what it is. Dawn will put it in the notes, but I couldn't remember. But it's a new one that's coming out this spring. So we're going to kind of read through them and cook through them. And Dawn and I love to cook, and we always go back and forth. And last year we read An Everlasting Meal together, and that was super fun. So we wanted to do a repeat.
Nice.
And yeah, and I have one for medieval times. So I'm going to do 2 different versions of Beowulf because Misty is going to be taking, which Sophie's or supporters? Sophie's and supporters? Sophie.
Yep, it'll be in the mentorship.
Yeah, in the mentorship. Misty is going to be taking us through Beowulf and how to teach our kids that. And so I have 2 different translations. I have the Douglas Wilson translation and the Seamus Haney translation. I mean, I have a couple other versions as well, because you just collect Beowulf. But those are the 2 I'm going to read. And I'm double dipping, and they're both counting. So you can do that too. So, and I have about a reread on each category, except, well, I'm reading a different version for the Odyssey. But so I have a reread in almost everyone. And almost all of my books came from my house, except a few in the Ancients category. So I shopped my shelves first.
That's a good idea. I did not really shop my shelves first last year. I tried to do more of that this year. And then someone gave me $100 gift card to Amazon.
So your shelf just got restocked.
So now I need new bookcases. I really had fun the other day, guys. So, actually, when I was making my plan, I was putting on Post-its all the books that I had ordered on Amazon because I couldn't add them to my stack where I was trying to conjure my categories. So, Misty, tell us your categories. Do you have your plan all done?
I do. And I do have some blanks, which I didn't do. I didn't leave any blanks last year. And for the most part, I picked my books because the way that I started this whole challenge for myself was as a challenge to read books I already owned and to stop just collecting them without reading them.
Right.
For myself, part of the challenge was reading what I already owned. And so I started last year with everything filled in and ended up adjusting several books. I kept the categories, but adjusted some titles. And I'm sure that will still happen, but I left a few blanks this year instead of feeling like they all had to be filled in ahead of time. Yeah. And so this year, like I said, 2019 was a very low book finishing year for me. And so 2020 was much better. And then for 2021, my goal is to keep stretching and read 50 books, including the whole Bible. So that's my reading goal for 2021. And so I am filling out 2 challenges then, because then that's 5 by 5 and 5 by 5 make 50. So
yeah, I would have been 5 by 5, and then I get a whole bunch of whim books. Okay, so
like I said,
I have a backup on the backside too, but I didn't want to make anyone feel bad because I actually care about your feelings, and I read a lot. And so I also have categories for like my vocations. I have one on health, and I have one for reading aloud to my kids, and a couple other things. So I do want to read 50 books this year as well. So
yeah, I definitely am bad at keeping up with like Goodreads or any other list. So I realized if I'm going to track that, this kind of tracking sheet works really well. And so this is how I'm going to track it. So, and because I do need to be stretched to read more fiction, even more than just 5. So I have 3 categories that are fiction. And I went with just general literature. So that's where I have Silas Marner on my list also, and House of Mirth, since Susan Wise Bauer mentioned that one, and I have it on audio, but I just have never listened to it. So that one's on there. And also The Rector of Justin, which is mentioned in Norms and Nobility.
I read that last year.
I'm going to read it this year.
Good.
And then I was going to
go on my list for next year.
I was going to do Russian literature as a whole category, and then I decided I might not actually want 5 whole titles. I'm halfway through Brothers Karamazov with the reading group inside Sistership. So definitely going to count that one. So I made it translated literature.
Oh.
So my literature category, I realized they are all either British or American. And then so I want another category to be foreigners. I don't know. Books written in another language. And then I have historical fiction for more just fun, lighter reading. So I have one category that I thought I could call it guilt reading. So I face our bookshelves when we eat dinner. And I realized like halfway through this year that I have owned these 4 books, and they've been living next to each other as friends for like 5 or 7 years. So I have here The Culture We Deserve by Barzoon, The Death of Christian Culture and the Restoration of Christian Culture by John Senior, and How to Win the Culture War by Kreft. And look, they're all little books, right?
Yeah. So these are the books you've been apologizing to?
Yes, these I and I realized they all have the word culture in the title.
Nice.
And so I have a culture category. And then in a lecture I heard this last year from Martin Cawthron, he recommended Smiling Through the Cultural Catastrophe.
Huh. I haven't heard of that one.
And so I bought a new book for that to round out.
Good job.
But it seemed like a cultural catastrophe that would be relevant. And then, so that's my I called it culture, not guilt. And then I'm really excited this year to read letters. Letters is one of my categories. Wow. So I'm going to read Habit of Being by Flannery O'Connor, which a lot of people have recommended to me. I already own The Letters of Francis Schaeffer, which I picked up at some used bookstore at some point. Someone at our last 5x5 meetup mentioned early Christian writing, which are epistles of early church fathers. So they're letters written to churches.
Yep.
And so I'm going to read that one. And the letters of John Calvin. And then the letters of P.G. Wodehouse.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, that's just going to be delightful.
I hope so. It should be funny. So that's kind of, it's letters, but it's all
nice.
It's a very wide spectrum.
Yes, it is.
Types of people. And I'm thinking that will be my morning reading because letters are, that should be easy to just pick up and read a little bit.
Yeah.
Then I'm doing economics.
Woo!
And Brandy helped me populate that one.
Right.
And theology and education are kind of constant categories. And then philosophy and a category on writing, like the craft of writing.
Nice. Okay, I see a couple questions that popped up in here I wanted to answer really quick. Someone asked if we'll be creating a 5x5 or 3x3 for kids. And I put the School Kids worksheets into the 5x5 accountability group in the Sistership yesterday. So there are pink forms and there are green forms. Yes, and if you can see, they have stars instead of hearts. So that if you have a little boy like mine, that wasn't going to do it because if the lime green form had hearts on it, it was still too girly. Then we fixed that. So, in fact, I helped my 12-year-old fill his form out yesterday. And I used the pre-filled one. So there's two versions of these. There's blank and then there's pre-filled categories. She's holding up a pre-filled category. And I actually found sitting on a shelf in my room and just like a random pile of things I had put there and forgotten about. It was like on a bottom shelf in a corner. A whole collection of Japanese folktales. I had no idea I had them. It's an older book. It's probably printed in the 60s or 70s. So guess what he's reading? Because he was looking at all my fairy tale books and he's like, these are really long. He was really taking the page length thing to heart because he would rather be outside, which is why he's doing a challenge. Why he's required to do a challenge. Anyway, so my little Japanese folktale collection was less intimidating than like Andrew Lang's color fairy books or something. So anyway, but I'm like, I've never read them. I hope they're fine. They're probably fine. They're folktales. How bad could it be? But I don't know. There's times where I'm like, wow, there's a lot of murder in this. So anyway, and I also put up yesterday the 3x3 for tired moms challenge. So if you just had a baby or you are otherwise really, really worn out or you didn't read any books last year and so 25 books is really a lot, the 3x3 challenge is there and it's in the same two sizes that the Sophie Journal's in so you can just swap the pages out if you want to. Yeah, so there's the 3x3 form. Put the category at the top and then title underneath. Anyway, so if that's more your style, we didn't want it to be like either you plan to read 25 books or you don't make a plan. So this is how.
Oh, Brandy froze for me.
Yep, she froze.
Make a plan. I don't look frozen to me. Am I still frozen?
Nope. Now you're back.
Okay. All right. So, do you want me to talk about my plan, or are we bored with plans now? Oh, we do. Okay. So I went back last year. I didn't read. I mean, I read some education books, but I didn't have an education category. But during the year, like, people gave me books, or there were books I decided I needed to read, or Renee was like, "Have you read this book?" And I'm like, I haven't. So now we can't have an intelligent conversation. And I did actually shop shelves and find a couple books that I needed to apologize to. So I have an education section this year, and I'm doing the Didascalicon. Is that how you say it? Is that on yours? Okay, so by Hugh of St. Victor.
Yes.
And then this is from Renee. So, and I think Renee's doing something for us in like a year that may or may not have to do with this, but it's the Pro Gymnasmata book by Kennedy. But it's what it is. It's a collection of the original source documents. So, you'll be out there and you'll buy these curricula that say they're teaching the Pro Gym. And you kind of think, where did that come from? And I looked around, and BYU used to have a really good resource page that has now disappeared. So this is like a collection of all those primary source documents. So it's not, I don't think any of them are the complete work of any one author. It's like just the Pro Gym sections, but then it's all put together in this nice little book that's like 200 pages long or something. So then How to Think by Jacobs, which I need to read really soon, because we're doing an episode on it. And Vitorina de Feltre by Woodward, which is a book I half read years ago. Like, I think it was 2014. This is recommended by Charlotte Mason. She used to assign it to her mother's group. And I have an original copy from her era. That's why I was like, I need to finish reading this. And then Abolition of Man, which Pam always wants me to read and reread anyway. So I'm doing that with a group this year. Then I have Health, and it's just like a bunch of books that were on my shelf that I had purchased or people had given to me. So I'm doing The Vitamin Cure for Women, Limitless by Quick, which is like a brain health, Alzheimer's prevention. Alzheimer's runs in my family. People always ask me why I'm reading these books, because I'm terrified of getting old. Nutrition and Physical Degeneration by Weston Price. I'm halfway through it. I'm doing it with my kids, so we're almost done. Not almost done. We're halfway done. Breath by Nestor, because I made this joke in the Sistership that every health book has a one-syllable title. And I had read like Gasp, and I had read Quench, and someone's like, you should read Breath. And I'm like, doing it. So I bought it. It did look good, but it cracks me up that this is how you name a health book now. And then Lexi Sauvé, I think I said her name right. I never know if I'm saying her last name right, but she told me to read Health for All of Life by Garwood, which is like a theology health crossover book.
Ooh.
So I don't know anything about it, but she really liked it, and so I was like, I'll read it. That sounds up my alley. Especially since I don't have a theology category. Huh?
What's that one called again?
Called Health for All of Life by Garwood. I think it's a brand new book. Like, I think it just came out. So then I'm doing government and econ, and believe it or not, I have a blank spot in my government and econ because I haven't decided. I mean, I have a whole bunch of Thomas Sowell I haven't read and stuff, but I haven't decided exactly what I want to read. It'll probably come down to page length. Like, I'll probably choose one of his books depending on how much time I have, because there's a couple I really would like to read, but they're pretty long, and I don't know if I'll run out of time. But I'm doing, so for government, econ, and kind of politics, it's just kind of that, I don't know. I didn't know what to call it, and so the title gets longer each time. But I'm doing Live Not by Lies by Dreer. Skin in the Game by Talib, my beloved Nassim Talib. And I put a novel in here. So I'm doing In the First Circle by Solzhenitsyn. Somebody's republishing it. It's huge. It's like 700 pages long, but I thought, well, I'll just start it when it comes and read a little bit all year, and that'll be like my big... But I've read a lot of Russians, but I think I've only read one Solzhenitsyn, and it was like nonfiction and small. Like, it might have even been a long essay. So anyway, so this is my first Solzhenitsyn novel that I can think of. And then Revolt Against the Masses by Siegel. Then, so now I have a blank spot. So that's it. for a natural world or whatever. But I decided that I kept saying I was going to read science, and then I really just read health books. Just being honest. So I was like, I'm going to make myself have a category where I'm not allowing health, but like it has to be something else.
Yep, Brandy's just frozen.
Yeah. There are quite a few questions though. So
yeah, we should get to a few of these.
So, okay.
All right.
I'm good. Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, we can.
Okay. So just let me say really quick, really, I think less boring than this is if you go in, we have prepared plans. So I put 2 in the accountability group. The first one I called Sisters Favorites because basically I polled everybody and asked them to tell me their top 5 books for the year that they would actually recommend, like generally for general reading for people who didn't have a specific interest in that area. I'm saying this so that Abby will be like, they weren't my favorite children. They were just some of my children. So I did that. So there's 4 and then there's a space because there's only 4 school-age sisters. So then there's a space for you to like ask on the forum or ask your friends in real life or whatever to fill out like favorite books from other people on the bottom. The other form, I called it the retreat refresher because we've had these different retreats with themes. So I took books in those themes, a lot of which were recommended by people who spoke at those retreats, put them into a list, then added a, from our Carpe Librum 101 list, and each category I left 1 whim space open so that you could fill it in for yourself. So we have both of those options in there. They're printable, or you could like mix and match and decide that you want to do like a little bit of this and a little bit of that and a little bit of your own or whatever. But if you're looking for inspiration, that's a great place to start because you can literally print it out and go if you want to. Okay.
The other thing is there's been a few questions about, so anyone can do this challenge.
Yep, you're super echoey.
Okay. Is this any better?
Oh, it is.
Okay. I'll just sit closer. You'll get up close with my big face. So the Sophie's, we have an accountability group. So if you need a little bit more motivation and you need tips and ideas on how to get more reading accomplished each day, each week, then that is the place you should go. I post in there once a week what I've read and then ask other members of that to post what they're going to read, what they're planning on reading. You know, making a plan, writing it down, and having some accountability for some people is just really, really helpful. So that is what I'm going to be doing. And we have had some great ideas and advice. So that is available to anyone who wants to. And that's where our mentorships and our book clubs, or a lot of our mentorships are, and book clubs are supporters, or just Sophie's. Yeah, no, supporters and
supporters. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if either of those options are something that would help you reach your goals, then you should consider doing that. But anyone can do the 5x5 challenge, and you can do it on your own, just as you are. So that's what we're offering, is just a lot more, not hand holding, but encouragement and support, and just to keep you focused. So, yes. So, and then we had some other questions. I think that covers the membership stuff.
Well, Crystal just asked, what is Sophie?
Oh, that's just our level that we call it Sophie's. Sophie means wisdom, right, Misty? That's why we called it that. So we're just...
She's also a girl, looks a little bit like Barbie.
Yeah.
Much to Abby's chagrin.
I know. I tried.
I love her.
Yeah, you would.
Our little mascot.
Yeah. So it's just a way to, it's our paid version of the membership. So you get mentorship, and this year we will have one from Karen Glass, and then Misty will also have one on Beowulf. We have seminars and other things that have happened over the past few years. So you have access to courses and different things like that. So if you have more, questions, go around, look around. And we have annual memberships, which are the best price. And then we have a monthly membership. So, and it allows us to continue to do this and to bring you great content from other people, because we all don't we know very little in the scheme of things. And we just want you to be able to think deeply and read widely and apply faithfully. And this is how we do it. So.
Yeah.
And also having the supporter and Sophie plans available also allows us to not have advertising and supporters on the podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't like ads. Rachel, supporters also have access to the accountability group. So you just go I'm on a desktop usually, but when you go in on the sidebar, there's it'll say groups, and in there is a group called 5x5 accountability. And that's where you can find the 3x3 plans and the 5x5 kids plans. I pinned it all to the top, so it should all be in there for that.
And I just put the green button will take you to information about Sistership and getting started there.
Yep. Yes. Oh yeah, and that's where the prepared plans are too, is in the accountability group. So.
Okay, how about this question from Cindy? How do you know when to push through a hard book you're not enjoying or when you should give it up?
Life is too short to read bad books. So if it's not edifying, then get rid of it. I mean, I'm assuming it's are you meaning hard?
Well, it says a hard book you're not enjoying.
Yeah, okay. So on a classic, when I start books, I give myself 150 pages. Anything modern, if it's not something that is hooking me and building me up within 50 pages, it's gone. That's my rule of thumb. But I can easily abandon books because I just have no guilt about having to finish something. Now, I do have to push through some things like Russian literature. Lisa A., bless her, loves it. And I'm really trying to love it. But it is incredibly draining for me to read because it is so, it's depressing. I'm sorry. And I know some people just find it so meaningful. It just speaks to their soul, but it makes me want to, it's not, it's beautiful and heart-wrenching. And I have to have it in little tiny bits of pieces because I cannot do it. So it's a lot. So there are things that I push through, and then there are things that I abandon without any guilt. So life is too short to read bad books, and bad can be this is just not speaking my language right now. And, sometimes it takes us a couple of years to get our reading muscles up to capacity, up to that strength where we can read something that is challenging. So even if you are saying, okay, this is too hard for me to read right now, but you know what? In a few years, I'm going to come back to this. So it's not like you can't ever come back to it again. It's just not right now.
There are a number of books that I started 2, 5, 10 years ago. And the first time I picked it up and started reading it, I just nope.
Intellectual Life, which ends up being a favorite. Yeah.
And then a few years later, you just have different experience, a different stage of life or different background reading now. And it's oh, I misunderstood it the first time around, or, he said something that irritated me. And so I totally wrote him off, So, sometimes it can be I can't read this, or I'm not going to read this right now, but don't let that, if it's a book that comes recommended from a lot of people, there's something where you think, well, is it me or is it the book?
Right.
It might just not be the right time right now. Mm-hmm. And you can come back to it later.
Yeah. I was going to say, it depends on why it's hard.
Yeah.
Because there's reading level, there's the wrestling with the ideas, there's the wrestling with something that you think you disagree with part of it. But then there's also where something hits you in a tough spot. I remember I had this book that was sort of even a parenting book, not hard to read. But I had a number of people come up to me at a GHC where I was speaking and say, that book was so hard to wrestle through. Well, it was because for them, that particular book was really demanding that they rethink some things and make major changes. And so it became, even though it was easy to the phonics were easy. understanding the words on the page was easy. But if you were actually going to take those ideas and live them out and you hadn't thought about it before, that was like a life altering sort of thing, which is probably not a good thing to do. Like in the middle of a cross country move, or like, so some people are like trying to wrestle through this and their life was in complete chaos already. Probably not a good time. So I do think there's a place for the coming back to it, where it's not like I'm going to finish it or I'm not going to finish it, but like I need to get through X and then we'll revisit this. Or maybe you realize I actually need to read this other book first in order to, like, sometimes you'll figure out this one book is referring to this other book so much that it probably would just be easier if you read that source book first and then came back to it. So, but I mean, I wouldn't say it was particularly hard, but like that Vitorino de Feltre book on my list, I started it in 2014. So I didn't abandon it forever. I mean, because like then I read another chapter or two in 2017. It's not that big, but it just couldn't be a priority for a variety of reasons. I'm going to finish it this year. So
that's what I keep saying about
Paideia.
Jaeger's Paideia. Yeah.
Yeah.
and just to be clear, somebody said that it's 3 volumes. I am only going to finish the first volume.
Yeah.
Just so you know, that is enough to finish.
Yeah.
And Brittany and a few others point out too that having people to read with also makes a big difference on that hard, whether it's just processing with people, that really helps digest the ideas, or it's the accountability of someone else is reading this, I can too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we can all get together and say, I didn't get that. It's okay. Like, oh, you weren't the only one, right? It's good. Yeah. Somebody talked about reading, scheduling reading. That's why I have audiobooks, is I walk a lot. And so I want to have something good to listen to. I have pared down podcasts, and I've just really started putting books instead. I still listen to some podcasts, but the majority of my walks are audiobooks now. And, you know, Brandy has a 30 minutes a day habit tracker of reading. And that's how I do it. 30-minute chunks. And sometimes it's 10 minutes here and 10 minutes there, but just reading every day, plodding along, really, really you're able to cover a lot of books. I don't tend to read a ton in the evening because I'm usually pretty tired, but I read some in the mornings and sometimes at lunch break, and I just fit it in where I can. But usually before I start dinner is when I get a lot of we do like a big EHAP, which if you need to know about that, you just go to Misty's website and she'll tell you all about EHAP. We clean up the house so it's kind of tidy and I don't have any visual clutter, and then I can sit down and read. And then I usually read for a little bit, and then I'm like, okay, I need a walk, and I go read. My kids are older though, so I don't have a lot. I mean, they're a lot more independent, so that's why I get to read a lot there. But when I was nursing, I just didn't have my phone. I didn't have a smartphone then because it was back in the day. I just read books while I nursed, and that was a lot of times a day sitting and reading. So,
yeah, which we did talk about this quite a bit in the Scole for All Seasons episode. So if you guys want to think through like stage of life and how that works out with reading, you can listen to that episode. I think it's 73. I looked it up yesterday for another reason. I think it was.
I would suggest that you listen to Brandy on this and trust her.
It's possible I remember the number wrong. Try SS73 and see what happens for the end of the URL. We have some people asking where you source your audiobooks, Abby.
So I have an Audible subscription. And right now they've added like the listening library, which you can just get that if you want. And I think it's like $8 a month. And it has tons of audiobooks. Like they have tons of C.S. Lewis. They have children's audiobooks now. And then my library.
Their new plan there has added a lot of Audible exclusive, just classics, but they're very well read.
Yep. So they're really well done. And I've been using that a lot. And let's see, my library has Overdrive, which is like the library app. And so I borrow a ton of audiobooks from those as well. So I make it part of my monthly budget. Like And, that is one thing that I do is audio. And I have kids who struggle with reading. So audiobooks are really, really helpful to my kids who want to have more stories, but physically it's challenging for them. So we have it as a family, and that's what we've decided to do. Yep.
Tiffany was asking if there's an easy place to see which books Sophie's are planning to go through in 2021. And I actually don't think there is a good, easy place to, like, where everything is in one place. Am I wrong, Misty?
Well, I think the best way to find them would be to just go to the Sistership main area and then look at for the topic challenge, because most of them are under the challenge topic. And then you would see.
I wonder if she means actually the book clubs, though.
Oh.
And not, because that is true. In the 5x5 accountability group, you can see people posting pictures from the printable
main area as well.
And then the main area as well. But I'm thinking I think maybe she means the discussion, which books are being discussed. And I'm thinking it would probably be smart of us to do a master calendar that has the informal discussions and the mentorship, everything in one place. Right. And we can just keep adding.
I'll put it on the list.
Yeah, okay. So Abby's going to put that together for you. And then we can just, if we have it in the main area, we can just keep updating it as things change. And then that way, if some of you are starting book clubs, you can even message Abby to let her know and she can add it.
Actually, please do that. I know of a few, but I don't know anyone, and I don't know everyone's. I know.
What happened last week is what always happens at the end of the year, which is that a bunch of people are like, hey, I'm going to start a book group. And then it's hard to keep track of who's reading what book and who's leading it. So, something Sarah said here about reading difficult novels as an audiobook reminded me that maybe sometimes with the hard book, instead of dropping it, you switch to audio. Mm-hmm. And it's true, you may not get as much out of it as if you struggled through every sentence on the page, but it will help you persevere. And it might be a good first reading and something that you come back to in a few years or something if you really want to get more out of it. But I'm thinking that's another way to not quit is to, there's plenty of books at our house that we only got through because we committed to reading it aloud. It wasn't an audiobook, but I read a lot of books aloud. And we made it through because, I'm thinking specifically Nicholas Nickleby, which is still something my children joke about now, 5 years later. But we made it through because we were reading it aloud. None of us would have finished on our own. It ended up being really good, but there's this middle part where it's just Anyway, so just a thought. I'm looking for other questions here. Can we just volunteer? Huh?
Well, someone just asked if pre-reading counts.
Yes.
Yes.
Even if you're going to read it anyway, it still counts.
And reading aloud counts. I had at least one book on my plan that I'm in the process of reading aloud, and it fit into the category, and so I put it on my plan. I didn't put every read aloud on my plan, but ones that fit perfectly in the category, I went ahead and put in there. So, so someone asked, can we just volunteer to lead a book club in Sistership, or is there a process to get one going?
So, for the book club group, you need to be a supporter or Sophie, and then you can start a book club in the book club group, and you can let me or Abby or Haley know, because we'll create a topic for you in the group so that people can find those easily, and you can tag that with the book. And then you can also go into the group and click topics, and you can see which books have discussions. Some of them are complete, some of them are in process, but if you click then that topic, it pulls up all the posts on that book. So even ones that are over, you can go through and still comment on those discussions as you are reading it, because I still like to talk about books that I'm done with. So anyone can start one in that group if you're a supporter and up, and we will help you get a topic set up if you just ask.
Yes.
And then also, Sophie's have the ability to start a local group. You could start your own private group. We wanted to offer that for people who had left Facebook, and that we're running book clubs for like local groups on Facebook, they needed a new home. So anybody who has Sophies can talk to Abby or Misty about setting up a group. So I know we have like a UK group that's on their own schedule. Nobody sees it except for them. So if you are looking for a private local thing, that is something that you can do also. And all those people don't have to be Sophie level to do it. It's just to lead it, to set it up and get the admin ability and all that stuff. You have to be one, but you can add anyone to your group that you want. So that's just another thing.
It can work like a Facebook group where you put the dates and locations for things, and it's private. No one else can go in it unless you let them in.
Yeah. Like I don't see the
your information.
Yeah. Well, and I don't see the inside of those groups, and we own the network, and I don't see the inside of those groups. So, I mean, it is truly private. It's not like Facebook where they're like secretly spying on you. We don't know what you're talking about. We just pray it goes okay and nobody gets mad at us because we can't see it. So be nice.
When we read Beowulf in March, I'm going to be leading that in the exact same way with the exact same kind of assignments and class times, which we'll do on Zoom, as I do a middle school literature class. So it's going to be like reading Beowulf together and also how to talk about literature with your kids, with your teens. So it's kind of both at the same time. And the assignments and the discussion will be based on the Seamus Heaney translation, but you're welcome to read others. It's a little bit tricky to write assignments because there aren't chapters or other.
Right.
Every translation has different page numbers and different breaks. So all the assignments will be based on the Heaney translation. But I also like to bring in some of the other translations too, just to show how they're a little bit different.
So Holly, the Beowulf group is for moms, but Misty's going to be showing you how she teaches it to, what's the age group that you teach it to usually, Misty?
6th through 8th grade.
Okay.
And if you have a 6th to 8th grader and you want to both do it together, like it's not a class, like you just get your kid on Zoom, but if you have a teen who wants to read it also and you want to do it together and show up to those class times together, then that's also okay.
I wasn't sure. I wasn't going to volunteer you. Misty will take over your literature class first. Just kidding. Just kidding. Abby's like, no.
I will not be signing papers and grading them.
Yeah. Misty would just grade all of my literature class in February. It'd be great. Okay, what else?
1,000-page book doesn't count as 2 books. Sure, if you want it to. I mean, I mean, there are people who are reading a part of the liberal or the great tradition, and they're counting that as one of their selections. So,
and some people, are taking the great tradition, which is a gigantic,
like 1,000
page, and that is their category.
Yep,
like it counts as 5 books. Yep. They're counting.
Oh.
That. I mean, it's huge, and it's a lot of different authors. Like it makes sense, right. And it's expanding in one book. You're expanding your view and broadening your view of education, very far because it has Plato to modern times. So, yeah.
Yes.
So, I mean, if you have a huge book that you really want to get through and work on, but you know that you're going to need to make it count for 2 books or more, then go for it. There are actually no real rules other than please try and expand and grow, right? Don't just put on all historical fiction novels, right? Don't do what Brandy's kids are doing and totally cop out with all fiction. Come on now. This is supposed to be reading widely and thinking deeply. So put some tough books in there.
Yeah. The point is not that we are creating a whole bunch of new rules for your reading, but that we're giving some structure and direction for stretching, either reading more because you're not reading very much, or reading more broadly because you're stuck in a reading rut. So the point is to diversify and expand your interests and reading.
Okay, can I read a couple things from the feedback forms that we got from 2020? Because that there were a few things in the what surprised you section that I thought, and I'm not going to name names, so for those of you who didn't want to be named, I couldn't really sort it out, so I'm just not naming any names. Because some of you were like, yes, and some of you were maybe. So I'm just treating you all like maybe, but I thought it was really interesting the effect of doing like this kind of a challenge and the stretching books and all that kind of stuff. So we had people say things like they found themselves becoming more selective in what they were reading. Like when they started putting things into categories, they became a more discriminating reader, which was interesting because I never had that on my list of effects this would have, but that came up more than one time. Or becoming a more discerning reader, that they learned to read books that they didn't 100% agree with and wrestle through those things. And they found benefit to doing that instead of just like reading Preaching to the Choir books. This one was interesting. What surprised them were how many conversations they ended up having with friends about the books they were reading. Having a variety of subjects meant that there was much wider crossover with other people's interests. And I think that's something we often forget, is that the relationship building aspect of this isn't just us with the author, us with other people reading the book, and us with the subject matter, but it actually builds bridges beyond that, because once you start gaining a subject interest, then you can talk with a wide variety of people, even people who don't read. I read this essay, and I want to say it was called On the Education of Christian Prince, and I could be totally making this up. It might have been Erasmus. I can't remember. But the thing that I remember taking from whatever this thing is that I have this dim memory of reading like a decade ago was the idea that like when you're raising royalty, you want them to read as broadly as possible because their subjects come in all shapes, sizes, forms, interests, educational levels, and you want them to be able to interact with whoever is before them with a certain level of understanding. And I feel like that's what I was seeing in some of the feedback, was that all of a sudden there were more opportunities for bridge building with just like the people they came across. And I'm like, if 2020 did anything, it's that it disconnected people from each other. And so the idea that this can kind of help begin to remedy that, I think is really, I was very excited about that because I didn't really predict that part of it. Other people said the variety helped. So I finished some books I did not love, which would make a rough year, except that it also felt so broadening that I wasn't just worrying about things close to my everyday life. I was being interested in things that were new and different from my own experience. And then the last one was, as an avid reader, I thought I knew which genres I liked. This challenge made me broaden my reading tastes, and I was able to find a new genre that I'm currently obsessed with. I found that it's important to stretch myself as a reader. So all this was really interesting to me because I don't know what I expected, but that wasn't quite all of it. So anyway, I was excited about it.
And we did have over 50 people complete the 2020 challenge.
Yes.
And not one person followed their plan perfectly. So you know, that's okay. I think Lauren Scott might have gotten closest. She only made 2 exchanges, which blows my mind that that's all she changed. Because I
will tell you, my daughter actually did complete it perfectly, but she's the one that did science fiction novels, detective novels. So
just what I was saying is, do not let perfectionism stop you from doing this. And it's okay to change. Now, try and do your plan, make realistic plans, but also it's okay if you change it up and switch things out, because almost everyone, with the exception of Brandy's daughter.
Yes. And so this year, people who finished their challenge get this little pin, which you can see is on my Scully Sisters bag.
Yay.
So it says the 2020 5x5 challenge finisher. So there will be a prize like this for 2021. It'll be a pin, so you can start collecting finisher pins, and 2021 can be your year.
So are we gonna like make cute little Scully Sisters vests? And we could. I had an Awana moment where I was like,
No. Heck no. I have another word in my mind.
have some fun, Abby.
No, and we can't have sashes either.
I want a sash with like little buttons on it. Okay,
I have one that says Barbie Princess too, or Sophie
There you go.
Princess there for you.
Sophie.
Just for Brandy, we'll make one.
That's right. That's right.
It's Sister Scouts. Okay, fine, but then you all have to go on like a really massive hike with me or some sort of endurance obstacle course.
We all just
Um,
opted it out.
Yeah.
Does the hike end at a library? If so, I may come. Just checking.
So we hope you will join us for the 5x5 challenge for 2021. And you can find encouragement and accountability and ideas and conversation inside Sistership. If you click the button here, we're going to keep this going. So many people are sharing their filled out forms, and it's just so fun to see what other people are choosing and comment and talk good books.
Well, and the journal does have the Sophie printable journal. It has which by the way, will be available for sale in a physical form probably in February. So we've worked everything out with our publisher, and now we're just in line basically for everything to be done. So once we have an estimated delivery date, then we'll put up pre-sales. Those of you who are Sophies get to buy it at cost. So whatever it costs us is what we will charge you. And you guys already have the digital copy. But I was going to say is there's a future reads list in there. So as you're reading through everyone's plans and you're like, oh, that sounds good. There's actual places for you to start recording these books so that you don't forget that you wanted to read them. So.
And that's where at the 5x5 accountability meetups, which we did on Zoom this last year and which we're going to be doing next year also, that was like half of the conversation. I was like, ooh, I want to read that book too.
Yeah.
So a lot of my picks for this year came from our meetups and what other people were reading and sharing about what they were reading. It's like, oh, I want to read that too.
Yeah. Just think of how many books you could buy.
We do have we have a limited quantity left of the book bags. And when we put the journals up for sale, those will also be in the shop. But both the journals and the bags will be, first come, first serve, limited quantity.
Yeah.
But we did have more. I think we have 40 or so that are going to be available in the shop when we open that up for physical shipping.
Yep.
All right. So join Sistership, hop on over. Abby and Brandy, I told everyone in the chat that we would be sharing our lists in Sistership.
Oh, okay.
So we'll do that.
All the names and authors and everything. Yep.
All right.
But it won't look as pretty as Haley's.
No, hers is beautiful. But yes.
I was like, can you make mine look like that? If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go and find Haley's picture because I think she typed it in like a pretty cursive font. And so it's perfect. So.
You know what would happen though? I just have to scratch it all out and then rewrite things in.
That's true. Feel better about messing it up if it's not perfect.
All right, everyone. We are so thankful. We're so thankful for 2020 and we are thankful for 2021. Thank you all for your support and continued listening. And most of us are off of social media except Brandy, but Misty and I are both in Sistership. So if that's where you want to find us, let's make 2021 a great reading year. And thank you all.
Yay.
Yes. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
We'll see you there.
See you in Sistership.
Right.